Friends, now we will look into the factors, circumstances that led to American Revolution, whether it is a reason of, whether it is due to British economic policies, whether it is due to the patriotic sentiments of Americans, whether it is due to the instigation of France. So, now our approach, now we will go into American Revolution, we will look the problem of Americans and then how this led to revolution in a chronological fashion. We are going to study the factors that led to American Revolution, but these factors we are not going to study in a very identical way. We are going to study in a holistic way, in a chronological fashion. Fine. So, I would like to call it not as a factors that led to the American Revolution. So, we are going to study the circumstances that led to American Revolution. Fine. The colonization of Europeans into American colonies has begun in the 17th century. We know that in the 16th century itself, the American continent has been identified by the Europeans. Columbus, Amerigo Vespucci, they have identified. Then there were some trading activities that began between Europe and the American colonies. However, the first European settlement in American colonies was established in the year 1607. That was the state or the colony of Virginia. You all know about Virginian tobacco, it is so famous. So, Virginia is the first European colony established in the American continent, and in the American continent in the first 2 centuries the Europeans focused only on the east coast, the Atlantic coast of American continent. That is where they first reached, and that is where they have first established their settlements and established colonies. So, beginning with Virginia of 1607, American colonies began to increase on a very high scale, and by the mid of 18th century, the American colonies reached the number of 13. So, by the middle of 18th century, there were 13 American colonies, the North American colonies established by the Europeans. These colonies were not completely owned by Britain. It was Britain and France which played major role in the establishment of American colonies, and there were 13 in number, and they were majority under the domination of Britain, and there was some French presence also in the American continent. In fact, we can say the way the Britishers and Frenchmen fought in India, they were also fighting in America to control these American colonies. There were 13 in which there was some tussle between England and France to control these 13 American colonies. These American colonies were a prized possession of Europeans. Europeans, they always were short of certain climatological aspects. For example, there was a rising cotton industry in Europe, but they were not having the climate and soil suitable to produce cotton. So, they were importing the cotton cultivated from the Asian countries. Similarly, there were many tropical products which are of higher value in the European continent, but Europe did not have the climate or the soil to produce them. So, they found a great opportunity in the American continent. In the American continent, with a varying topology, varying climate and huge water resources availability, they found a proper opportunity to develop tropical products to meet their European demands. So, American colonies were prized possession of both Britain and France. Now, we will look at how these American colonies developed and how these colonies rised upon to oppose British rule and then became independent. See, American colonies, when compared with the other colonies of England elsewhere, they were given much more autonomy. If we especially compare with India, in India we have got first legislatures in the last I would say decade of 19th century. 1891 legislations of the 1891 Council Act were having some representation in India. But when you look at the American colonies, from the day one, Europeans have given them much more freedom, much more autonomy. So, we can say the development of American colonies happened on a very, very unique scale. So, the first we will be understanding how the colonies developed in American continent and how did they develop in a very unique way. We can say that America was in an awakened situation by the time of 18th century, by the middle of 18th century. American colonies developed on a very, very, very unique style. Initially, the colonies were set up by England, where if you take Virginia, it was set up by England, but it was not that only English people have migrated to America. America have witnessed the migration of varying populations from Europe. In fact, there were many different countries people who have migrated to America. So, we can say America from the beginning, the colonies of America had heterogeneous population. They were not homogeneous English population, they were heterogeneous population. We had English Americans, we had French Americans, we have Italian Americans, and above all, we had a considerable population of African Americans who were taken as slaves to America to work in the colonies by the Europeans through this very infamous triangular slave trade. Triangular slave trade happened between Europe, Africa and America, that we will discuss when we come to our colonization and imperialism. So, we can understand that America developed on a very unique lines with a heterogeneous population, and because of this heterogeneous population of having different countries people, America from the day one began to witness the rise of hybrid culture. American culture, unlike the European nation states, was in a very mixture of different cultures together. We can say in one sense it was a hybrid culture. Even today, if you see, you take the famous festivals of America. We all know that most of the Americans went from Europe, but what about Halloween? The Halloween festival celebrated by Americans is not there in Europe, it is not in England, it is not in France. It is a festival that has uniquely developed in the American continent. And what about the Thanksgiving Day? So, if you see America, though most of the American population have come from Europe, the festivals what they conduct, what they celebrate are very unique. For example, you take the language of America, you take the American English. American English is so unique from the British English because it has been influenced by the different languages of Europe. So, American English we call biscuits, but they say only cookies. So, American English, American language, American culture, American festivals, even the American religion was not one European country's religion, but it is a religion, a mixture of so many European nations and even some African cultures and even some Asians. We even had Asian Americans in America by the 18th century itself. So, because of this heterogeneous population, because of this hybrid culture, America developed by the middle of 18th century a distinctive identity, a very important distinctive identity, and this identity of Americans was unique from the identity of European mother nations. So, this distinctive American identity has evolved by the middle of 18th century. So, in the America, the American identity, American nationalism was on the rise. So, the fundamental reason for American Revolution, keeping aside the British colonial policies and the French support, we can say that the conflict that emerged by the middle of 18th century in the American continent between the rising American identity and the identity of England or the mother nation is the major reason for the American Revolution. So, there was a conflict of identities in America. So, we can say that this heterogeneous population, hybrid culture and distinctive identity led to the rise of new nationalism and patriotism in America. So, by the middle of 18th century, we witness the rise of American nationalism. The conflict of American nationalism with the British colonialism is the major reason for American Revolution. Now, we will analyze the socio-economic and political conditions of America at the middle of 18th century and how these socio-economic and political conditions helped the rise of American revolutions. First, we will see the political condition of American colonies by the middle of 18th century. Britain, I will come to the conflict between England and France, how it all came to British control, how all the American colonies have been given to British control a bit later. We can understand that by 1770, all 13 North American colonies are now owned, controlled by Britain. And Britain from the beginning has given a considerable autonomy to the American colonies. Very high degree of autonomy has been given. We all know that these colonies developed on a very unique plane. So, one colony Virginia, one colony Massachusetts, one colony of New York, all of them developed on unique lines. So, there was considerable autonomy given by the British to the American colonies. There was a considerable autonomy. There was a considerable autonomy given to the British, given by the British to the American colonies. Each American colony was given one colonial assembly. Each colony was considered a unique identity, unique territorial integrity oriented area, and each colony has been given one colonial assembly. Each colony has been given one colonial assembly. So, all the members of the assembly were elected by the leading people of that colony. The aristocracy of the colony themselves used to choose their representatives, and these colonial assemblies decided the most important matters of the colonies by themselves. And these colonial assemblies, of course, were headed by a governor. Each colony was given a governor, but this governor was appointed by the British Crown, by the British Parliament, and they were having loyalty and responsibility towards British. So, the colonies of America were organized on this way. There were colonial assemblies elected by the local populations which decided most of the legislative matters. However, the head of these colonies was a governor. The executive authority was vested in the hands of governor and his council. This governor and his council, they were answerable to the British Crown. So, there was a tussle. In every colony, there was a tussle conflict between the colonial assembly and the governor. So, though the British has given considerable autonomy to the American colonies, they have kept an element of despotism in the name of governor, who was completely loyal to the British Crown, not accountable to the colonial assemblies. So, this was one issue. The institution of governor and its despotism was one issue of colonial people, colonists against the British, because they have given them autonomy but not executive power. Other than these colonial assemblies, there were many more representative institutions given by the British to the colonial people. They were each town given a famous urban local body called town meetings. In American colonies, each and every urban body, each and every town, there were many major towns. There was Philadelphia, there was New York, there was Massachusetts, there was Boston. All of them are having one town meeting where the leading people, the aristocrats of the town used to sit, decide and deliberate upon the town issues. So, we can understand that unlike other colonies of Asia, the American colonies were given considerable political autonomy by the British, and this considerable political autonomy helped the growth of modern ideas. The colonial assemblies, the town meetings and other urban local bodies has given an opportunity for the American colonists to develop the modern ideas of democracy, modern ideas of equality, modern ideas of rights, natural rights, etc. So, there was political awareness among the American colonists. However, the American colonists were disappointed with British for leaving behind a despotic governor. So, on political front, there was some agitation due to the existence of governor. Otherwise, there was huge degree of political liberalism, political representation leading to the growth of American colonies. However, these colonial assemblies were not given any power over economic activities. Trade, the most important aspect of colonies being trade, the most important aspect of colonies being trade, and this trade was completely out of the control of colonial assemblies. They are completely out of the control of colonial assemblies. Fine. Coming to the socio-religious aspects. America and the American colonies enjoyed considerable social openness, considerable social freedom, in fact even compared with their European nations and European forefathers. In American colonies, because of colonialism means you are coming out of your place and settling down in other area. So, you are coming out of your place and leaving behind your existing social networks. We all know that 18th century Europe is characterized by hereditary nobility and their privileges. When we discuss about French Revolution, at length we will understand how these privileges have led to rise of revolutionary tendencies in France and other countries of the Europe. However, when we come to America, the first unique feature is the absence of hereditary nobility. In America, there was no hereditary nobility. Most of them are farmers who have migrated from the Europe, set up their own farms and cultivated and developed on their own. So, there was no hereditary nobility. There was only aristocracy in American colonies. There was only aristocracy. So, anybody who can venture out and develop a land and make money for himself can become an aristocrat. It is not hereditary. So, lack of hereditary nobility created an open societal environment in the American colonies. Number 2, in American colonies, there was no church domination. In Europe, by the 17th and 18th centuries, the dominant church, the Roman Catholic Church, and its authority was a major burden upon the human growth. There were many limitations kept by the church, and church meddled with the socio-economic and technological development of people in the Europe. But when we come to America, we have a major church. The Anglican Church of England was a major church, but there was no church domination over the social, economic and political activities of the people of colonies. In fact, there was no complete authority of the Anglican Church. There was religious heterogeneity. There was religious heterogeneity or religious diversity in the American colonies. In American colonies, there was Anglican Church, there were also many different types of Protestants, there were Catholics, there were Africans who were following their own native religions, and above all, America was also having a huge number of atheist population. So, religion of American continent by the middle of 18th century did not have any kind of authority or any kind of control over the socio-economic political life of the people. Therefore, we can say American colonies were free from the social hierarchical setup of nobility and the domination of church. So, this provided considerable social freedom in America, and this social freedom resulted in growth of education. We all know modern education is very important for the growth of modern political economic ideas. So, this lack of hereditary nobility, domination of church authority in the America led to the rise of modern education, modern societies, and in the urban life there was modernity in the America. So, America was flourishing with political as well as socio-religious freedoms. So, this atmosphere of openness in American continent provided for American awakening. So, what we can conclude from this discussion on the America's political, social and religious conditions by the middle of 18th century is that America, owing to the socio-religious and political freedoms it enjoyed, was going towards awakening, intellectual development. So, we can say that by the middle of 18th century there was an awakened America, that is rising in modern ideas. An awakening was there in America. We can say simply awakened America. This awakened America, coupled with the rising identity of American identity or distinctive identity of Americans, these two created the fundamental factors for their quest towards nationalism. So, awakened America and rising new identity led to the rise of American nationalism. This is very, very important. This is a very important factor that provided for the American Revolution. Now we will look at the economic conditions of America by the middle of 18th century. With respect to colonialism, we have learnt in our earlier sessions that colonialism is a very unique way of establishing relationship internationally. There will be a settlement established by the Europeans somewhere in the world, whether it is America or whether it is Asian continent, which is called a colony, a settlement of Europeans, and this would be set up by a European nation, what we call as mother nation, maybe England or France or Dutch. England established colonies in India, initially Bengal, initially Bombay, initially Madras. Then France established in the Indochina. Dutch established colony in the states of Malacca, and then they expanded to the entire Indonesian islands called Spice Islands. So, the mother nations established settlements across the world, and these settlements were called as colonies. And in colonialism, there existed a very unique relationship between colonies and mother nations. Colonies are not supposed to have any independent existence. This is very, very important to note. Colonies are not supposed to have any independent existence in the colonialism. Colonies are meant to serve the purpose of mother nation. Colonies are expected only to serve the purpose of mother nation, whether providing raw materials, whether providing labor, whether providing a market for the finished goods of Europe, whether providing access to the ports. Colonies are only set up to serve the purpose of mother nation. For example, let us take the case of Cape Colony, a very classic example. Cape Colony is today's, of course, South Africa. Cape Colony was set up by the Dutch people in the 16th century, 17th centuries. And the main purpose of Cape Colony is to cultivate fresh vegetables to supply to the sailors of Dutch people en route going into Asia, because in those days, due to so much very lengthy sea journey, these sailors were being affected by many diseases like scurvy due to lack of access to fresh fruits and vegetables en route. So, the Cape Colony was set up so that, and Dutch farmers were transported from the Holland to Cape Colony to set up new farms, to cultivate fruits and vegetables, and to provide them to the en route sailors of Dutch and even to other Europeans. So, the Cape Colony was established only for that purpose. Portuguese established a colony in Goa. The main purpose is to trade with then Vijayanagara Empire, Bahmani empires of the South India, to take the spices from India to Europe and to supply them horses. So, it is purely a trade economic reasons were behind the establishment of Goa by Portuguese. Same is the case of Madras, same is the case of Bengal, you know about Indian colonies and their purpose. So, in the colonialism, colonies are established to serve the purpose of mother nation only. They are not supposed to have independent existence, and they are also supposed to be dependent upon mother nation. This is very important. They are supposed to be dependent upon mother nation. This is the basic relationship between mother nation and colonies in general colonialism. However, when we come to American continent, the economic conditions of American colonies by the mid of 18th century was in such a way that there were some deviations in this colonial relationship. The economic conditions of colonies, the economic conditions of American colonies were in a way against the general colonial perception. First and foremost, we know that America is a very big land with a huge arable land with water resources, mineral resources, even manpower procured from Africa and even Europe. So, they had all resources. So, over a period of time, American colonies became self-sufficient in essential commodities. American colonies have become self-sufficient in essential commodities. This is very important. On food and some of the cotton textiles, they were not dependent upon America. In fact, British were dependent upon American colonies for some special products like cotton, some special products like sugar cane, some products like tobacco which had very high business value in the Europe. The American continent colonies used to supply them to Britain. In fact, Britain became dependent upon America. American dependence upon Britain has come down. So, we can say there was a kind of inversion of colonial relationship between American colonies and British, where American colonies were less dependent upon England, whereas England increasingly became much more dependent upon American colonies. We all know that by the middle of 18th century, England has witnessed the rise of first industrial revolution, and we also know that whomever says industrial revolution says cotton. That means textile industry is the core of or the most important industrial activity of industrial revolution of England. When textile industry developed in England, American colonies became very important because they were supplying huge cotton raw material to English industries. So, we can say that by the middle of 18th century, there was inversion of colonial relationship between England and American colonies, where American colonies were becoming self-sufficient and England is becoming dependent upon the American colonies. So, in American colonial people used to think that British is actually dependent upon us and they are exploiting us. Further, the American colonies were kept under strict trade regulations by Britain. Strict trade regulations. There were many British colonial laws which kept American continent under strict trade regulation, preventing the growth of industry in America so that they won't become competition to English industries. For example, we can say there was an act passed by England called Iron Act. There was an act passed by England called Iron Act, and this Iron Act was preventing the growth of manufacturing industry in the American colonies. America, we know, is very rich in iron, coal. The Great Lake region is very rich in coal, whereas the Appalachian mountain area on the east coast is very rich in iron resources. But Britain purposefully prevented American colonies from developing any steel industry so that they can avoid the competition. So, Iron Act was a discriminatory act. There were many other trade regulations, we will come to that. So, the economic conditions of American colonies were in such a way that they were self-sufficient, their dependence over Britain was reducing, and Britain is controlling their economic growth. On the other hand, England is becoming increasingly dependent upon American colonies. So, the Americans began to feel that British rule is becoming an impediment in their economic growth. Though the colonies themselves have been established by Britain, now the American traders, businessmen began to believe that it is the British role that is obstructing the further growth of American nation and its economy. So, there was trade related conflict between Britain and American colonies, sorry. Fine. On the last and most important aspect or circumstances that led to American Revolution. American colonies by the middle of 18th century have witnessed high degree of growth in education. This is very, very important. We know that American colonies enjoyed high degree of social, religious and political freedoms. This helped them to concentrate on the development of modern education system. So, American colonies have witnessed the growth of modern education system in colonies, which were represented by some great universities. Even today they are very, very important. The universities like Yale, the universities like Princeton, the universities like Yale, Princeton, these were so important and they were already established. So, with the help of these major universities, America witnessed the growth of modern primary, secondary and even higher education. So, there was a huge population of educated intellectuals in America. And these educated intellectuals, they began to oppose the British rule, in fact, British colonial policies. It was this educated middle class which developed in America began to oppose British colonial policies. Further, in fact, we all know, now we understand that in America, the educated middle class and the traders and some of the political leaders, they are not happy with the American colonial rule of Britain over America. They were disappointed the way Britain is coming in the way of their socio-economic and political development. However, there were some intellectuals, we can say that there was rise of intellectuals or rise of philosophers in America who began to show new direction for American nation. There are problems and people of America are not happy with the British rule, but what is the alternate? Alternate is very, very important for any revolution, any war, any freedom struggle. And that alternative to the American colonies was provided by some rising intellectuals of America who were inspired by the ideas of the world and began to apply those ideas in the American context and began to strengthen and support the idea of American nationalism. There were some important philosophers, we will briefly talk about them. First and foremost important one is Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson. In fact, Thomas Jefferson was also in politics and he became the third president of USA. Thomas Jefferson was a very important philosopher who was inspired by liberal thinking, who was inspired by the ideas of both John Locke and Rousseau. The European famous philosopher John Locke, we know about John Locke. John Locke is the first man who proposed the ideas of natural rights. He simply said that any naturally born human being is born with some rights, right to life, right to liberty and right to property. And then came Rousseau, who improvised upon the ideas of John Locke and even came forward with the idea of popular sovereignty. So the Locke's idea of natural rights, Locke's idea of social contract between the state and people were further improvised by Rousseau, who came with the ideas of social equality, idea of general will and finally the idea of popular sovereignty. Thomas Jefferson was a representative of these radical ideas in American Revolution, the radical ideas of popular sovereignty, the radical ideas of liberty and equality. So Thomas Jefferson played very important role in promoting the nationalistic sentiments among the people of colonies of America and also played an important role during American Revolution. In fact, even after American Revolution, he played an important role in the building of American nation. After Thomas Jefferson, second most important was Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin, very famous for what he has established. He was the man who established a famous organization called American Philosophers Society. These all names I think you are all aware of, a great man. Benjamin Franklin established a great organization called American Philosophical Society, and this American Philosophical Society played a very important role in growth of modern ideas. There were many leaders who were members of this, and these leaders got influenced by the ideas of Benjamin Franklin. They were influenced by the ideas of Locke, Rousseau, and they all played very important role in American Revolution. So Benjamin Franklin's American Philosophical Society played a very important role. And finally, the most important philosopher who played a major role in the American Revolution is the famous Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine. In fact, there were some who even called Thomas Paine as the father of American Revolution. Though not uniformly or universally accepted, yet there was a considerable population who called Thomas Paine as the father of American Revolution. In fact, there was another famous philosopher called John Adams. John Adams, this name is also important. John Adams said at a later date that without pen of Thomas Paine, without the pen of Thomas Paine, the sword of Washington would have been in vain. So it is the ideas of Thomas Paine that played very important role in mobilizing the support for American Revolution, which helped the armed revolt or the civil war of George Washington. So there was one man who can be compared on contribution to American Revolution with the leader of the American Revolution, George Washington, is none other than Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine wrote two important books. In fact, one of them was very important, called Common Sense. A pamphlet written by Thomas Paine called Common Sense is very important from the American Revolution perspective. It was written in 1776 during the American Revolution, and it played a very important role in motivating the American population and motivating the American army, colonial army, to fight against the British. In fact, it was Thomas Paine who said that famous line that it is the irony of the history that the large continent is ruled by a small island. This is all we know, that the irony that a large US continent, the American continent, is ruled by a very, very small island. So, Thomas Paine, his revolutionary ideas, his common sense pamphlet helped a lot in mobilizing the support for American Revolution. That is why there is a view that Thomas Paine to be regarded as father of American Revolution. So, these are the three important philosophers: Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Paine. Of course, there are some more important people. We have John Adams, he is also very important, John Adams. So, but these three are the major people who played. In fact, along with John Adams, even George Washington and his ideas also played important role in American Revolution. George Washington is not only a military leader but also a philosopher. John Adams and George Washington also played important role. So, these are the most important philosophies which guided American Revolution. However, we can say that the ideas that inspired American Revolution had the background of Locke of England and Rousseau of France. This is one thing we have to remember. Though the ideas of Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, Washington and even John Adams played important role, but these philosophers themselves were influenced by the ideas of John Locke of England and Rousseau of France. So, we can say that even before the French Revolution, the ideas of Rousseau were actually implemented in American continent. It is a very big, a romantic episode that Rousseau's ideas got first implemented in America. American Revolution was succeeded, and then the American Revolution inspired French Revolution. So, now we can summarize what we have understood. We have understood that America by the middle of 18th century is undergoing socio-economic, political and religious growth and openness. There was political openness, there was social openness, there was economic growth, there was also growth of economic growth, there was also growth of educational, and there were some great intellectuals like what we have discussed, and they all played very important role in the American Revolution, and they paved the way for the rise of American Revolution. So, this is what we call as the awakened America. Now, we will go into specific policies of England and some events which finally led to the rise of American Revolution. Friends, we have seen how America has awakened socially, economically, politically by the middle of 18th century, and how that led to the rise of American nationalism, which has begun to counter the loyalty of American colonies towards the British nation. Now, we will look into British colonial policies and how those colonial policies became an impediment in the growth of American colonies, and how this colonial dissatisfaction towards British policies led to American Revolution. So, now we will chronologically look at the British colonial policies and their impact over American economic conditions. So, we will first learn about British colonial policies before 1763. Why this 1763 is landmark year? I will just come to that in a while. So, 1763 is also very important from Indian history perspective. If you can remember that, you will already be understanding what is the importance of 1763. I will come to that in a while. So, now we will understand what were the initial British colonial policies towards American colonies and how they became a dissatisfaction for the leaders of American colonies. First, British passed laws called Navigation Acts. Navigation Acts were passed by British Parliament in order to control the rise of shipping industry in American colonies. In fact, its basic intention is to facilitate the British shipping companies to take benefit of trade with the American colonies. But unfortunately, it impeded the growth of shipping industry in the American colonies. We know that America is very rich in iron and coal, so they could have built steel and then ships. But the American shipping industry was seriously impacted by this discriminatory laws of British Parliament. Navigation Acts postulated that the trade with American colonies, the seaborne trade with American colonies, the seaborne trade with American colonies must be conducted only through British ships. Only through British ships. That means even if American goods are going to Spain, they have to be only using British ships. So this kept the entire American trading community at the mercy of British ship owners, and they used to charge a huge amount of transportation cost. So this was a big issue or the big impediment for the growth of shipping industry, and as well as it was a costly affair for the British American colonial people to send their goods to European continent. They had no freedom of choosing the shipping company. In fact, shipping company determined the trading prospects of American colonial people. Further, having so much of opportunity, a very long coastline, huge mineral resources, America could not develop shipping industry under British rule. Then Britain had kept some import and export regulations or controls over American colonies. Import export controls. With respect to export, British Parliament passed a series of laws restricting that some special products produced in American continent like tea, like tobacco, like cotton and like sugarcane. These are most important special products. The special products which are having huge economic value, the special products that have been produced, cultivated in American colonies must be traded with any of the European country only via England, only via England. That means, for example, you take, there is a huge demand for cotton in Spain and the American colonies want to send some cotton to Spain, but this is being a special product. The cotton has to be first shipped to Britain, unloaded at a British port, then again loaded to another ship and sent to Spain. First, this was very, very costly, and second, the entire business community of American colonial people is left under the mercy of British businessmen. They played the role of middlemen. Without playing any role in the business as well as in the production, the middlemen of England were making huge money. Further, the American colonial people were paying huge taxes and huge fees for the British ports. So this made American goods costlier and the business was impacting. So American colonial people were disappointed that all their most important prized products they are unable to sell in the open market. There is British interference in the trade. And second, in fact more important, the British passed a series of laws and then made it compulsory that all imports for American colonies, must come via England. That means, for example, if Italy want to send some goods to American colonies, so American colonies will pay the price. But now unfortunately, according to this law, that Italian goods have to be first shipped to England and from there they have to be sent to American colonies, unnecessary transit expenditure and rise of cost for the American colonial people. Finally, these import-export controls made American colonial traders and in fact forced them to trade only with England. So they used to sell to English merchants and then English merchants used to sell to the other parts of European continent. and any import required for the American colonial people, they used to buy only from England, because that was cost effective than buying from any European country, because even if you buy from any European country, you have to send to England, and from there you have to bring to American colonies. So both navigation and import export controls have kept huge limitations upon the American colonial trade, and American traders were very disappointed with these British colonial laws. Then there was this famous Iron Act of English Parliament. Iron Act prevented the growth of manufacturing industry in American colonies. So despite having raw materials, despite having mineral resources, despite having huge human resources, America could not develop a manufacturing industry because of the Iron Act. There was hardly any production of steel and iron in American colonies before American Revolution. Then finally, a sensitive act called Molasses Act. So you all know that liquor is very sensitive in America. In American culture, there is a specific importance. In fact, they have categories of liquor for each and every type of food. Every festival is celebrated with alcohol. The alcohol had developed a very important role in American culture. But despite knowing the fact that alcohol is very important for American culture, this Britain has passed Molasses Act, which kept control over American colonies, that American colonies must purchase molasses only from British West Indies. We know that the West Indies islands were very popular in producing molasses. There was opportunities around for American colonies. They can buy from even French West Indies, or even they can cultivate from themselves, they can prepare for themselves. But in order to take benefit out of this alcohol business, Britain has kept controls that American colonies can purchase molasses only from the British West Indies. So this again became a cost escalating activity for American colonies. So molasses were purchased at higher rates, and that led to a rise in the cost of liquor. So day to day expenditure of American people increased. So these acts what Britain has passed before 1763 were restricting the American economic activity, and whatever America was trading with other parts of the world, Britain was playing a role of mediator and taking huge benefit out of it. This was leaving the American traders, American businessmen, and even some of the American political leaders in disappointment that though they are not dependent upon America, though they are not dependent upon the Britain is taking advantage of American economic facilities and keeping America in dark. So this was huge disappointment. But one thing we have to keep in mind, that though the British colonial policies were adversely impacting the American economic situation, there was not much reactions for Americans. Americans did not much react to these policies. Americans were under the impression that they need British for their protection. This is very important. That is why 1763 is a landmark year in the history of American continent. Before 1763, despite having so much of economic exploitation, American colonial people never directly opposed British policies, because they believed that British presence in American continent is very useful, very important for their protection from the French onslaught. This is very important. We know that Britain and France were competing in the American continent to take advantage of these colonies. Now they know that it is the British army that is protecting from the French onslaught. So there was a loyalty, there was fear, there was need. So you do not find much opposition by the or public opposition by the American colonial leaders against British colonial policies before 1763. So again 1763 is a landmark year. Now we understand what happened, we will see what happened in 1763 and why the dynamics changed after 1763 and how dynamics that changed after 1763 led to American Revolution of 1775. 1763 is a landmark year not only in the history of America, but in the entire history of world, because it is a year where the 7 Years' War ended. A famous war called 7 Years' War between Britain and France was ended in 1763 with a treaty called Treaty of Paris. The 7 Years' War is very important war. In fact, there are people who call it as the First World War, because this 7 Years' War was fought in 5 continents: American continents, Europe, Asia and even Africa. So this is a war where it is fought in 5 continents. In fact, the famous British Prime Minister Winston Churchill at a later date called 7 Years' War as the First World War. It was fought mainly between Britain and France, in which France was supported by Spain and Britain was supported by a European nation called Prussia. When we come to the history of the Europe, we have heard discuss about the rise of Prussia and how Prussia integrated Germany. And we also heard about a great name in Prussia, a great king called Frederick the Great, a man of Hohenzollern dynasty who has actually built a nation called Prussia, capital Berlin. So that Prussia, the rising Prussia under Frederick the Great, they were supporting Britain. France and Spain were together and this war was fought on various theatres. There were both colonial and European factors behind this war. There were both colonial and European factors behind this war. There were both colonial and European factors. In fact, it is also called as, in the American continent, it is called as French and Indian War. This war was fought on American continent for competition over North American colonies. Britain wanted to retain her control over the American colonies, whereas the France wanted to gain control over American colonies. That was the main issue, and this war ended in 1763 in the favor of England, and all North American colonies have been accepted as British colonies. Finally, France has withdrew and all 13 North American colonies have been completely given to the British control, and also this war resulted in the removal of French threat. This is important. This war led to the removal of French threat to the American colonies. As I told you, before 1763, the leaders of American colonies used to feel that we need British army presence in America, we need British support for American colonies in order to protect from France. But now 1763 led to the removal of French threat, and thereby it gave confidence to the American colonies and also a feeling that now we may not need the help of England. So after 1763, American colonies began to react against British policies. This year, I think you all must have known in our Indian history. If you all can guess, this is the year where the third Carnatic War also ended. So one theatre of 7 Years' War was India, the third Carnatic War between England and France in the south of India. And we also know that gave complete control of Indian colonies to England, and the French was relegated to second position. So this is how 1763 war is very important. It led to the removal of French threat for the colonies of America, and that gave them confidence to fight with Britain at a later date. Also, this French-American war gave one more advantage to the American colonies. In the French and Indian War, that is the 7 Years' War of 1763, many American colonial leaders also fought the war along with Britain against France. This is important. The French-Indian War was very famous because many American colonial leaders, colonial military leaders, they fought the war along with the British army against France. The best example is George Washington. George Washington, the man who led the American Revolution, was a major player in the French and Indian War. In fact, he was very, very vocal in the initial times. Also, his role played a important role, played a beginning in the war. So, George Washington and many other American colonial leaders, they fought alongside Britain against France in the 1763 7 Years War. This gave American colonial people increased confidence that they can even fight England. So, 1763 war is very, very important for the American Revolution in two counts. First, it led to the removal of French threat. Second, it gave the people of American colonies confidence that yes, we can fight the well-trained armies of European nations. So, 1763 is a landmark year, and after that you will see. Also, this led to the rise of new leaders. George Washington, the man who led America in the Revolution, came out of this 1763 war. So, now after 1763, we see that there is a new enthusiasm in American colonies, new confidence in American colonies, and this new confidence and new enthusiasm played a very important role in the American Revolution. Now we will see the change in British policies, after 1763. British colonial policies after 1763. French and Indian War, the 7 Years War, has given England a great prestige in the world. It is this war, this proved to the world about British naval superiority. It is this war that proved to the world, in terms of colonial empire, British is the strongest country. Strongest in terms of naval power, strongest in terms of economic relations, and it is a major colonial power. So, this is the beginning of the rise of British power in the world. So, Britain gained huge confidence after this 1763, and this led to increased British control over colonies, very important. And the first focus of England was over the American colonies. Britain, gaining lot of confidence from this French-Indian War of 1763, have increased her control over the American colonies. So, this is, I think, backfired. What you have seen is before 1763, you have given them political freedom, you have given them lot of social freedom, educational development you have promoted, only trade related aspects you have been controlling. But now suddenly if you try to increase those control, American colonial people won't be accepting it. And now Britain wants to control American colonies, whereas American colonies are now of the opinion that without France, there is no need for British army to stay in the American colonies. Fine. Also one important point, French-Indian War, 7 Years War, was very, very costly enterprise for England. So, England began to suffer economic problems after 7 Years War, and it tried to improve our economic fortunes by taking the benefit from the American colonies. So, this is also one important point where we have to understand that after 1763, England's economic dependence upon America increased. So, you will see lot of measures taken by England now which wanted to increase the economic control of Britain over America rather than reducing that. After 1763, Britain passed a first law called Quaterning Law, Quaterning Act. This act is about British army stationing in American colonies. Britain armies stationing in American colonies. This Quaternion Act was passed in order to save Britain from this rising military expenditure. There was a lot of British army already stationed in the American colonies, many cities, many colonies. Now they passed a new law saying that because Britain is stationing her army in the American colonies are supposed to pay for the expenses of the army, like your subsidiary alliance. So they passed a new law suddenly and said, Britain is placing army in your colonies, so the colonies have to collect some money, tax, and then pay that to Britain for their maintenance. This was strongly opposed by the British colonial members and leaders of American colonies. Americans felt that why should we pay for you? On the other hand, they were of the opinion that now they don't need British army, and whereas the Britain imposed new tax on American colonies for the army stationing. So Quaternion Act has become a controversial issue. Then there was again a proclamation by the Queen called Queen's Proclamation. The Queen's Proclamation was given by the Britain in order to prevent Americans from westward expansion. This is another controversial aspect. Westward expansion. We know that American colonies have been set up by these entrepreneuring Europeans who wanted to expand, who wanted to settle down in the other parts of the world and make more money. They are very enterprising and entrepreneurial. Now, after this removal of French threat, the American colonies, which are hitherto placed only in the eastern coast of the Atlantic Ocean. We know that only in the eastern coast of the Atlantic Ocean you have the American colonies. Now, the American colonial people wanted further expansion to west, naturally, and to expand their colonies, increase their resources. And Britain was a bit skeptical about that. Britain felt that in the western part of the America, there are still wilderness, there are still some locals who are living, and if you are expanding into the west, you will have some conflict with the local people that may lead to new conflicts, and that again needs army intervention of England, and it is a costly enterprise. So, just like how you tell your kids that come back home by 7 o'clock, please don't go beyond your street, be safe in your home. This is all we tell our kids. No, our fathers told us, and we are telling our kids, so that they will be in control. This is a way of imposing discipline. That is what the Britain told them, ki you people are happy in the eastern coast of America, please be there, don't go to further west, don't invite conflict, and don't attract me to intervene at conflict. Already after 7 years war, we are under economic distress. Now I don't want to enter into much newer conflict. And then this was taken aback by American colonies. The leaders of American colonies began to question Queen's Proclamation that why should not we go into western part of America, why Britain is controlling that. So this, though given by the Britain with good intention, has backfired. Third, there was a new Prime Minister in Britain called Grenville. Grenville was a Prime Minister of action, and he began to implement all British trade laws. In fact, we know there were navigation laws, there were import-export laws, there were Molasses Act, there were Iron Act, but there were many people in American colonies who are violating them. Smuggling and violating laws were very common in America. Now what happened? Lord Grenville, who became the Prime Minister of America, Prime Minister of England, he began to control the activities and he began to strictly implement British colonial policies, already existing policies. But this became a big problem for American colonial leaders, and they began to oppose this strict implementation. Now they really began to feel the impact of British colonial policies. So the disappointment was growing. And finally, in 1765, Britain passed another act this act of Britain is more impactful, more intrusive into American colonies. In 1765, Britain passed the famous Stamp Act, and a new tax or new duty called stamp duty was levied over American colonies. 1765. And this is the first time where you will find the leaders of American colonies reacted to British policies, publicly reacted to British policies, and the conflict has been initiated. Stamp Act. So, 1765 is a landmark year. Finally, the British Stamp Act has given an opportunity for the colonial leaders to oppose British policies directly. Now, we in India, we know about stamp duty. Stamp duty we pay whenever you are buying a land, whenever you are selling a land, or whenever you are going into a trading agreement, lending money, taking loan, every time you do it on a stamp paper and you pay the stamp duty to the government of India or Andhra Pradesh, government of Telangana, government of any of the state government. Have we ever questioned why stamp duty has to be paid? No, in India we never question. You can tell me that, sir, any transaction is made legal by paying stamp duty. Why? Does the stamp paper is something that cannot be destroyed? Is it a paper on the face value everybody will accept? No. For example, you are paying stamp duty when you are lending money to someone, and then that is registered. Thereafter he questions, he does not pay, you have to again go to court, and court will again deliberate on the matter. Just on the face value of the stamp paper, nothing is guaranteed. So, there can be a question that why can't that be done on a plain paper, white paper? And why should you and me doing a business transaction pay money to the government? This question we will never ask in India, because we have British colonial legacy and we have been made to think that in order to make any transaction legal, we need to pay duty to the government. This is exactly what British did. Stamp duty is an unique intervention of England. In the history of the world, there was no dictator, no despot, no emperor who levied a stamp duty. It is only the British Liberal Parliament which has found a new way of taxing educated intellectuals and traders and introduced stamp duty. Stamp duty is a pure British innovation. And when stamp duty was levied on American colonies, the people of American colonies were shocked. Stamp duty was very wide in its domain. Most of the intellectuals, journalists, lawyers, traders, bankers, businessmen. So, most of the educated intellectuals of American colonies have been brought under the ambit of stamp duty. Journalists, lawyers, traders, bankers, businessmen, the entire educated middle class of American colonies have suddenly come to a place where they are supposed to pay stamp duty, and they could not understand the logic behind stamp duty. They could not understand, and they felt Britain is exploiting us. Britain is trying to take the benefit out of American internal business also. Earlier we know that Britain is controlling the external business. Now they began to think that Britain wants to take money even in our internal business transactions. So, first time in the history of American colonies, we hear reactions. Earlier we had disappointment, earlier we had discontentment, but there was never a public reaction against British policies. 1765 stamp duty, which engulfed the entire intelligentsia of American colonies, led first time to the reactions against these by the American leaders. So, this led to the rise of reactions, and all these oppositions finally led to an assembly. first time the leaders of American colonies created an informal meeting, an informal assembly was formed in order to discuss the British colonial policies, especially the stamp duty. It is the famous Massachusetts Assembly of 1765. 1765 Assembly of Massachusetts. This is the first meeting conducted by the leaders of American colonies against the British colonial policies. The entire spectrum of American intelligentsia participated here. As I said, businessmen, traders, bankers, journalists, lawyers, the entire educated intelligentsia plus the leaders of colonial assemblies, most of the colonial assemblies joined in this Massachusetts Assembly. Here they questioned the British rationality, British reason in levying stamp duty. So, this is basically against the stamp duty, and they threatened England that if the stamp duty is not withdrawn. In the Massachusetts Assembly, first time the leaders of these colonial assemblies and the other intelligentsia, they questioned and threatened Britain that if Britain does not withdraw stamp duty, we will sign an agreement of banning import and export with England. Then what else England needs from you? England needs some colonies trade. So, they said we will sign a non-import, non-export agreement, a non-import, non-export agreement with the Britain. That is it. That means they are saying we will close the trade. They may not do it, but they threatened Britain. And moreover, it was this assembly where the leaders of American colonies, they have raised a new slogan. This is very important. The slogan is no taxation without representation. No taxation without representation. This of course later on became the main slogan of American colonial fight or American revolution. No taxation without representation. This was a rude shock for the British colonial policies. The British leadership was shocked with this. So, what does they mean when they said no taxation without representation? They mean that in the British Parliament, there is no representation for American colonies. British Parliament is having only the representatives of Britain. Then they are questioning how come British Parliament can pass laws over American colonies when American colonies are not given any representation in British Parliament. So, that means you are questioning the very basis of colonial relationship. You are questioning the very basis of colonialism. The Britain was shocked. What is the colonial relationship? Now, who passed Indian Independence Act? India got independence in 1947. The question is who passed Indian Independence Act? It was passed by British Parliament. That means when Britain occupied India, Indian sovereignty has been taken over by Britain. So, British Parliament automatically gained power to legislate over India. So, finally, our Independence Act is passed by British Parliament that led to the transfer of sovereignty from England to India. So, this is the very nature of colonialism or imperialism, and now by raising this historical slogan of no taxation without representation, American colonies questioned the very fundamental idea of colonialism. We are Americans, that is what they meant. They meant we are Americans and we Americans have no representation in British Parliament, then how can England make laws for us? So, this was a rude shock for the entire Britain. The British Parliament, British Prime Minister and even the British royal family was shocked when they raised the demand that you cannot tax us because we don't have representation. So, this is the questioning that this colony and mother nation relationship is being questioned. Fine. England was shocked, but however they felt that these people are really very unhappy with the stamp duty. So British Parliament, understanding the colonial sentiments, formed a Declaration Act, and it withdrew stamp duty. Stamp duty has been withdrawn. Fine. And also in this act they mentioned that American colonies are owned by Britain. American colonies belong to Britain. So British Parliament have every right to tax American colonies, to legislate over American colonies. So in the Declaration Act they have withdrew the stamp duty and satisfied the American business, but Britain also emphasized that there is a colonial relationship between American colonies and England, a mother nation. So the mother nation have the right to legislate over any matter of the American colonies. So the Britain re-emphasized her right over American colonies. The storm passed, stamp duty has been withdrawn, the American colonial people were happy, the Assembly of Massachusetts has been abolished. But this stamp duty and assembly has raised a fundamental question between American colonies and the American colonial owner or the mother nation Britain. So the conflict between these two countries got aggravated. That is why we see when the next act has been passed by the England on American colonies, this time American colonial leaders revolted and reacted in a very violent and forceful manner. So Assembly of Massachusetts and the slogan of taxation without representation, no taxation without representation, stands as a symbol of American Revolution. In fact, this is a symbol of the struggle of the entire colonized people. That is why many say that this slogan, no taxation without representation, helped the growth of anti-colonial struggles, nationalistic struggles across the world, beginning with Latin America, then Asia and finally Africa. Latin America, Asia and Africa all were motivated by the struggle of American colonies. This slogan helped them a lot, no taxation without representation. So this storm passed. So England took one step back, but it does not mean that England is ready to compromise. England wants to emphasize our authority. So sometime later in 1773, England passed one more act. It is Lord North, he is the man who played important role in this act. Lord North's Tea Act. It is a Tea Act. 1773. Again 1773 gives you an idea on Indian history. So we all know that 1773 is the year where first time British Parliament passed regulating act controlling East India Company. You all must remember that East India Company was in losses and they appealed to British Parliament that help me out, I am unable to do business in India. The British Parliament was shocked. Are all your members, directors are so rich, then how the company can be at loss? So they passed an act called Regulating Act, by which the Britain began to control the activities of East India Company in the London as well as back home in India. We all know about Regulating Act and Warren Hastings and his Governor Generalship, Governor General in Council, a conflict, and also then the British Parliament controlling the board of court of directors of East India Company. We know in our Indian history. There is a link between this Regulating Act and the 1773 Tea Act. There is a link. We know that the Regulating Act of 1773 was passed by the England Parliament to help the ailing East India Company, which is of course the agent of England, to help the East India Company. The same way the 1773 Tea Act was passed also to help the East India Company. This act gave East India Company a monopoly over tea trade with American colonies. This is very important. This Tea Act of 1773 passed by the England's parliament gave East India Company, Indian East India Company, the East India Company which is in India and other parts of Asia, a monopoly over the tea trade of American colonies. American colonial people were shocked. Their tea purchase and selling is always with the neighborhood. Tea is used to be very cheap in American continent. There was huge tea production inside. Now suddenly British has brought a middleman, that is East India Company, which is nowhere linked with American colonies. The members of East India Company all come from England, and now with East India Company getting this monopoly over tea trade has become costlier, and East India Company is going to take undue benefit from this tea trade. This is not a win-win situation for colonies, England and East India Company. This is going to be an undue benefit for the East India Company. So this became a big issue, and this led to huge reaction among the American colonies. They were shocked that Britain is now using the trade of America not only to help herself but to help her empire. East India Company is the agent of British Empire in the East. So now the tea trade of America is being used to benefit East India Company. This became a big issue. There was reactions, and the reactions first broke out in a city called Boston, that led to a very famous incident called Boston Tea Party. That led to a very famous incident called Boston Tea Party. It is not a tea party like what we have, evening tea, and then biscuits, water, cookies. No, it is not like that. Boston Tea Party was a violent incident where the people of Boston, a group of people of Boston who were very unhappy with the Tea Act of England, they attacked East India Company ships. They attacked East India Company ships that are stationed in the Boston port, and they have took hold of the entire tea brought by them and throw them in the sea. The entire tea that has been brought by East India Company has been destroyed by throwing into tea. That is what is popularly called the Boston Tea Party. That means Boston Tea Party is the first violent reaction of American colonies against British policies. So the conflict has begun. Now the conflict has begun. First time British is feeling that they are facing a violent reaction from American colonies. After this, of course, Britain also reacted very sharply. We know that British are the best in colonial policies, colonial domination, colonial exploitation, and they were the biggest colonial empire, and they were not ready to lose American colonies so easily. So after Boston Tea Party, Britain reacted very violently. British first, they completely shut down the Boston port. They dismissed the local administration of Boston city. They moved army in the Boston city. The entire colony of Boston has been taken over by the British army. So for the Boston Tea Party, Britain did not compromise the way they have done in the stamp duty, but Britain took it as a challenge and decided that now we have to teach these people a lesson, and it reacted further, with force and violence. Boston port was closed, Boston administration was dismissed, and many of those who participated in Boston Tea Act has been arrested, and above all, British began to mobilize their army. Finally, British army, the trained red shirts, what we call them as popularly, one of the most powerful armies of the world then, British army was mobilized into American continent. So the conflict between American colonial leaders and the British has reached a place where the conflict has come to a place where there is going to be a kind of war-like situation. Under these conditions, the leaders of American colonial assemblies, they formed a conference and began to discuss the future course of action. The first conference they formed was in the city of Philadelphia. So, first conference of Philadelphia. In the year 1774, after Boston Tea Party and British controlling activities, British mobilization of army, the leaders of American colonies, except one colony, Georgia, they joined a bit late. Except one American colony, Georgia. Most of the American colonies except Georgia, all 12 American colonies and their leaders, they joined at a place of Philadelphia and conducted the first conference of Philadelphia. And this first conference of Philadelphia is historical in the history of the historical, not only in the American perspective, but also in the human rights and natural rights perspective, because at this conference of Philadelphia, they issued the famous Bill of Rights. The first conference of Philadelphia led to the issue of Bill of Rights, where they declared that all American colonial people are having, all people of American colonies are having some rights, fundamental rights, and the British have to honor them. So, this Bill of Rights can be said as a predecessor to the entire idea of fundamental rights and human rights. Further, they signed a non-import and non-export agreement among themselves with Britain unless Britain withdraws her reactionary activities. So, they urged Britain, even urged the King of England, that please withdraw your coercive and forceful activities, otherwise we will all sign a non-import export agreement, and please grant us this Bill of Rights. So, first conference of Philadelphia is the beginning of rise of solidarity among American colonies, beginning of the sentiments of independence, and also they were preparing to fight the British army. But Britain did not accept any of the demands of the first conference. They declined American colonial rule, American colonial demands of bills of rights and demands of import-export agreement, and they decided to continue with their forceful actions. So, this further led to rise of British armed action in America. So, it has been understood by the American colonial leaders that Britain is not going to grant any kind of considerations of freedoms to them, and now the time has come where they have to fight and decide with England. And after that, when the Britain denied these demands, they began to form and rise a colonial army. They began to rise what we popularly call as a colonial army, under the leadership of, as we already know, the great man George Washington. So, the first conference of Philadelphia 1774 could not find any advantages for the colonial people, as Britain now decided to forcibly suppress the reactions of American people. So, that led to the rise of colonial army. And this colonial army began to fight with the Britain, and that is the beginning of American War of Independence. George Washington played a very important role in mobilizing the forces of different colonies, and also he urged the common people to participate. So, there were colonial armies plus local militias raised by George Washington and his associates, and these two put together began to fight the British Red Army. The red shirts of British are the most organized army of the entire Europe, England. So, that led to the beginning of what we popularly call as American War of Independence. 1775, after the Conference of Philadelphia, they began the war, declaration of war, and that led to the American War of Independence, also called American Revolution. 1775, with the failure of this negotiation between the American colonies and the British, which led to the rise of American War of Independence, George Washington has formed one of the most powerful armies of colonies. He aggregated all the colonial armies and also he raised some local militias. But however, these are not enough to fight the British. So, 1775 to 1783, there was this American War of Independence under the leadership of George Washington. So, after the American War of Independence, the war has been declared between England and the American colonies. A second conference was conducted in Philadelphia. The Second Conference of Philadelphia. Second Conference of Philadelphia. This is very important because this is the conference where the leaders of American colonies finally issued their Declaration of Independence. It led to the issuing of Declaration of Independence by American colonies. First time in the history of mankind, the colonial people have come together and declared themselves as independent from the mother nation. So, Declaration of American Independence also ushered a wave of new ideas. It gave new ideas like popular sovereignty, republicanism, equality, liberty, fraternity, popular sovereignty, republicanism, equality, liberty. Further, it also exposed the ideas of federation because American colonies were 13 which had different developmental stages and they had different unique cultures. So, they needed some kind of bringing them together, federation. So, American colonial people finally issued a declaration and declared America as one nation. All colonies declared that we are one nation, that is, we are America. And later on, this resulted in the formation of United States of America. The Declaration of Independence by American colonies is a landmark event in the history of mankind, where the ideas of Locke, ideas of Montesquieu, ideas of Rousseau, like the theory of natural rights of Locke, the theory of separation of powers of Montesquieu, the theories of social equality, the theories of popular sovereignty, the theory of general will of Rousseau, all of them have first time been implemented in a modern state, that is America. So, 1775 Declaration of Independence by America is a great historical event, not only from the American perspective but also from the world perspective. But this war, the 1775 war with England, was not an easy war to win for the American colonial people. They were fighting the most organized army of the world, and these people were less equipped when compared to the British army. But 2-3 important factors helped the American colonial people to defeat England and finally in 1783 to gain victory for the formation of United States of America. The first important factor was their internal motivation. Factors that helped American success in American War of Independence. First and foremost is the motivation and the patriotic sentiments of Americans. This is very important. Motivation, they know they had a strong commitment. They felt they are being exploited by an alien power and they wanted to come out of the exploitation and stand united. So, that motivation and then the patriotic sentiments that gradually emerged. In the initial discussion in this session, we discussed about the distinctive identity of American colonies, American distinctive identity which led to American patriotism and nationalism. So, this became a fight between America and Britain. So, that motivation and that patriotism helped American colonies. Number 2, Britain was stationed across Atlantic Ocean. So, all the supplies for the British army, British is actually stationed across Atlantic Ocean. So, any supplies, any weapons, any support have to cross the entire Atlantic Ocean, whereas the Americans are situated there. They know the country better than the British. So, from the supplies point of view, from the external support point of view, American colonies enjoyed better position than the British army which is coming across the Atlantic Ocean. Number 3, and the most important one, French support. The French nation supported American independence, supported American war of independence against Britain. From 1763, when France has been thoroughly defeated by England and removed from the North American colonies, France was very disappointed. It was waiting for an opportunity to take vengeance upon Britain, and they found an ample opportunity in the American War of Independence. And initially France provided indirect support, and later on France has sent a large army across the continent, Atlantic Ocean, into American colonies, and this French support and the French armed intervention. It is said more than 6,000 strong French force has crossed Atlantic, came to American colonies and fought on the side of American colonies against the Britain. So, this French support, French direct military intervention in the American Revolution in the help of England, in the help of American colonies, led to the complete and thorough defeat of English army. In 1783, the British commander in American colonies accepted his defeat. None other than our own Cornwallis, you know him, our Indian famous Governor General, a very young Governor General. It was a Cornwallis who accepted the defeat and signed the Declaration of Surrender, and thereby in 1783 United States of America has come into existence. So, finally, under the leadership of course, the great man George Washington. We can also add one point here. The fourth reason for the victory of Americans in the American War of Independence is the strong leadership provided by George Washington. So, French support, George Washington leadership, their internal motivation, patriotism, and English disability of cutting across Atlantic Ocean for the supplies facilitated American victory, and the first independent colonial nation has took birth, United States of America. So, American War of Independence we all know is also called American Revolution, right. Now, the question comes, it is just an American fight for their independence, economic grounds, political grounds, then why is it called revolution? When you compare with French Revolution, when you compare with Russian Revolution, it is not a revolution in strict sense. American War of Independence is called American Revolution due to its impact. American War of Independence produced revolutionary changes both for the America and for the rest of the world, so it is called American Revolution. Spectacular changes. It has impacted a lot internally to American nation, that is USA, and also internationally to other parts of the world. The impact of American War of Independence was so huge, so wide and so deep. The American War of Independence is also called revolution. So, in the process it is a war, but in the impact and effect it is a revolution. So, American Revolution is the first modern revolution which led to the formation of the first federation, first written constitution, first republic under the guidance of the rules of separation of powers, equality, liberty, and also the ideas of popular sovereignty. So, this is American Revolution. So, we have seen today's this session the circumstance, what is how did American colonies emerged and how there was rise of dissatisfaction towards British rule, and what are the events beginning from 1763 which finally led to the American Revolution, the circumstances that led to American Revolution. We also understood the role of philosophers like Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Paine in the rise of American Revolution. The next session we will discuss about what is the nature and what is the significance of American Revolution or the impact of American Revolution. Thank you.